Success is something you attract by the person you become. Success is something you attract by the person you become. Success is not something you pursue, chase, run after. Success is something you develop, something you become. You attract success. Tomorrow we're going to talk leadership. Here's the theme of leadership. To attract attractive people, you must be attractive. To attract skillful people, you must be skillful. To attract committed people, you must be committed. So the whole key to unlock all the treasures, whether it's economic treasures or spiritual treasures, financial, social, personal, every way you can possibly think of, is by your own personal development. And then he added one more, which is so important, and it's probably worth the price of the seminar. Here it is. What you become is much more valuable than what you get. What you become is much more valuable than what you get. The major question to ask on the job is not what am I getting here? The major question to ask on the job is what am I becoming here? Not what am I getting, what am I becoming? So it's very important what you become. Because what you become attracts. If you become cynical, you attract cynicism. What you become attracts. So this whole subject of personal development was so vitally important to me. It changed my life.
Every miracle in the Bible has one thing in common, just one thing in common. Trust me on this, I've studied it. The only thing in common, every miracle in the Bible begins with a problem. You never see a miracle in the Bible without a problem first. There's a problem and then a miracle. So what does that mean? Well, what that means is that when you have a problem, you're blessed because you're a candidate for a miracle. You see, the only person that has a problem is the person that doesn't have a problem. You see, if you have a little problem, you're a candidate for a little miracle. If you got a big problem, you're a candidate for a big miracle. I mean, choose the problem and choose the miracle. But if you have no problem, you're not a candidate for a miracle. I feel badly for you.
How to become financially independent. Now, it's fairly easy if you start at age 15. To become financially independent by age 35. How many years between 15 and 35? 20. So make the note, 20 years in America is enough time to become financially independent. Now we can use all kinds of terms, getting rich, becoming wealthy. Sometimes rich and wealthy is a little bit heavy, or someone might say, I don't need to be rich. But, you know, rich is always in each person's concept of rich. You know, it used to be a long time ago, rich was being a millionaire, but, you know, a millionaire, $1 million is not that much anymore. So everything is relative. But someone says, well, I don't want to think of myself as trying to get rich. So, you know, there's other language we can use from a variety of semantics. You know, we can choose what's more comfortable. Becoming wealthy. The term wealthy in everybody's mind is probably a little different of what the amount is or what the accumulation is. So that's interesting. Rich or wealthy. But here's one concept I think everybody can comprehend, even the kids, and that's to someday be financially independent. So now let me give you my definition of financial independence. My definition is the ability to live from the income of your personal resources. The ability to live from the income of your personal resources. Meaning, at that point, you wouldn't have to work, that is to make a living or work to earn money, because now you have enough income from your personal resources. You would then simply work for accomplishment, you would work for pleasure, you would work for joy, you would work for whatever. But from that point on, once you became financially independent, you wouldn't have to work anymore in terms of supporting yourself, in terms of like making a living.
How we view things determines how we do things. What you see is who you will be. And we see things not as they are, we see things as we are. That's why two people can be in the same situation, same experience, same place, and see things completely different than anyone else. So what is before you isn't what you see, who you are is what you see.
Now, here's the next question. How do you wish to live? There's a difference between modestly and extravagantly. If you wish to live extravagantly from the income of your personal resources, you'd have to have a lot more personal resource. But if you wanted to live modestly, and if that life would suit you, modest in terms of what it would require to, support your daily living, if that was fairly modest, not the ambition of your goals, but modest in terms of the money you would require to live comfortably, it doesn't take that much personal resources. I mean, it doesn't take $100 million, it doesn't take $50 million, it doesn't take multiplying $1 million, let's say at 12%, it's $120,000 a year. You could live fairly well on $120,000 a year, even after paying taxes. But it depends on how you wish to live. It depends on your own personal lifestyle. Now, if you need a mansion in every major city in the world, it's going to take more personal resources, right? If you need a jet and a chauffeur and a limousine and, this whole concept. But to be free of anybody to have financial claim on you and to be free to live, in a fairly easy manner, all you need is a certain amount of personal resources to be able to live from the income of those resources. Here's what we call that, whatever those dimensions are, financial independence.
The best thing you can do is teach people to write, because there's no difference between that and thinking. And one of the things that just blows me away about universities is that no one ever tells students why they should write something. It's like, well, you have to do this assignment. Well, why are you writing? Well, you need the grade. It's like, no, you need to learn to think. Because thinking makes you act effectively in the world. Thinking makes you win the battles you undertake. And those could be battles for good things. If you can think and speak and write, you are absolutely deadly. Nothing can get in your way. So that's why you learn to write. It's like, and I can't believe that people aren't just told that. It's like, it's the most powerful weapon you can possibly provide someone with. And I know lots of people who've been staggeringly successful and watched them throughout my life. I mean, those people, you don't want to have an argument with them. They'll just slash you into pieces. And not in a malevolent way. It's like, if you're going to make your point and they're going to make their point, you better have your points organized, because otherwise you are going to look like and be an absolute idiot. You are not going to get anywhere. And if you can formulate your arguments coherently and make a presentation, if you can speak to people, if you can lay out a proposal, God, people give you money, they give you opportunities, you have influence.
I finally figured out that I'm not trying to completely convince you of everything I'm saying. I'm trying to convince you that I believe what I'm saying. So I think there's a subtle difference when you're influencing people. People think to close you, I have to convince you to believe everything I'm saying. I don't believe that's true. I think I have to convince you that I believe what I'm saying. Right. That's a totally different level of influence. It looks less like a beggar. It looks far more certain, which is level 2. Level 2 is the more certain person will always influence the least certain person, and you know your product. So you should be more certain about it than they are, or your program. So a couple things about that. All kinds of things give you certainty, okay? Number 1, preparation. Knowing your script, knowing your product back and forth, believing in your product back and forth, knowing that you know the words, knowing you know what you're gonna say it's a dance. This is very interesting to me when people struggle at sales. There's only like a certain amount of objections you're going to get in whatever your industry is. You already know what they're going to say. It's one of 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 different things. You ought to be ready to respond to them. So most people in sales are professional presenters. They're not professional closers. So they're great at their presentation, they can't close. And so I got really good at closing, because someone's gonna close somebody. Either you're gonna close me, you shouldn't, or I'm gonna close you that you should. Yeah. And so the more certain person's going to win. If you just want to accept that truth, That one, you got to believe that I believe what I'm saying, not that you believe. People buy things all the time and say yes to things all the time that they don't necessarily believe everything about. They believe the person presenting it to them believes it. That's a different level.
One of the things that's really interesting about the Old Testament is that, and the Jews in the Old Testament, is that they don't take the path of Cain. Every time they're walloped by God, which is like fairly frequently, they say, we must have done something wrong and we have to set ourselves right. And that's an unbelievably heroic attitude, because that's the alternative to cursing fate. It's like you take the responsibility for failure onto yourself, and you think, well, if I just had my act together a little bit more, if I took advantage of every opportunity that was put in front of me, if I wasn't resentful and bitter, then I could have done something that would have tilted the situation in a different direction. And like, that's almost inevitably true. Dostoevsky, I think, said something like, every man is responsible for everything that happens to him and everything that happens to everyone else. And that's, you know, it's a crazy statement, right? It's a crazy statement. And he was a pretty extreme person in many, many ways. But there's a level at which that's metaphysically true, you know, because what happens is that it's failure to act often that's the most catastrophic. You know, I mean, it's to not do the right thing when the situation presents itself, and it's very specific. You know, you're constantly in situations where you could do the right thing if you were willing to take a risk that's actually of relatively moderate size, and you know that you could take the risk, and you know that you should take the risk, and you don't. And that happens to people all the time. And then what happens is the thing that they didn't oppose grows a little bit, and they shrink a little bit, and that starts a loop, hey?